Hey, welcome to episode 75 of the Penciled In Podcast. Today I'm super happy to, we are both super happy to welcome Doug Cowan to the show. Welcome to chatting with us today, Doug. So glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Hello, Doug. I only recently got a little nosy at your work today, and it is amazing. So I would check out Doug Cowan. But we're going to start. Usually, we start at the beginning. Like, have you always been interested in art? Did you do art as a kid?
Yeah, I've always been drawing since I was a child. I like doing it. I like looking at it. I was always kind of captivated by the images and picture books. From there it was like a lot of people, picture books, comic books, illustrations, copying them, making your own. We're always doing that as a child. I was really into, I always remember Greg and Tim Hildebrandt's work when I was young. Their picture books, like their Wizard of Oz book especially, and the original Art of Star Wars books. I was always looking at the drawings and paintings in those, and I think that's probably some of my earliest memories of, being focused on drawing and painting.
Do you think any of those you've transferred some of the things you liked about that into the work you do now?
I,
As you've grown.
yeah, I think so. I think a lot of that stuff stays with people. The things you like, I'm still always looking at those artists. Even if maybe it's not as similar to what I'm doing now, but I still love that work. I still like looking at it. I think a lot of those characteristics, they do probably stay with you, and you build on them and keep, maybe the core aspect of them. So
Did you go to college to study
yeah,
art?
I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. It's like a art and design school in architecture. I studied illustration there and painting, and I did both kind of at the same time. So I went there for 4 years, graduated, started doing illustration after that. Had an illustration rep for a while, but kind of focusing on painting now. But I still do some illustration.
Did you find your time at university useful? Did you learn everything you needed to learn there?
Yeah, I think it was a good school. It was a real school that I think kind of turned you into a workaholic. It made you want to work. It made you feel guilty if you weren't working. So there was a lot of practice. We were practicing all day drawing. It wasn't too focused on technical skills, but I think, I went there because there were a lot of artists that I liked there that had gone there. There were several like painters and comic book artists, people like George Pratt or Kent Williams. They were all from the group of that school, and I liked the work they were doing and wanted to do something similar to that.
Is that how you found? I mean, what materials do you use for your work? Did you find that at college from experimenting and?
Yeah, I think at school they kind of want you to do a little bit of everything to kind of find what suits you or what you're comfortable with or what you might want to pursue. So I think at school it was heavily drawing at the beginning. Painting was kind of something I probably pursued more on my own, but I think it was kind of all those, traditional things is what we did some digital work, but not as much, but I was really interested in the drawing and painting aspect of it.
For people who are watching the video, you can see the painting behind Doug on over his right shoulder. It is gorgeous. Just to give you a feel for what his work looks like, I've been a huge fan for a long time. You actually, how did you find sketch cards? You actually came into sketch card world about the same time that I did, back in 2007. How did you fall into it?
I had gone to school with another artist, Colin Walton, and he had worked, I think, for Marvel while we were in school. And after that, I think he went to Topps. And at the time, I think they were looking for some artists to work on certain projects. And he suggested me, and I did some samples and then just kind of joined Topps from there, worked on a bunch of different projects, mostly Star Wars Galaxy. which was nice because I loved those kids when I was younger. I mean, those cards when I was younger, all the original sets. I think the work in those are still pretty remarkable. So it was nice to work on those later on.
What other sets have you been involved with? Was it mostly tops?
I did some Marvel stuff, I think, with Rittenhouse. I think it was like an Avengers set. And I think maybe a Lord of the Rings related one with them. But I think most of the stuff I did was for tops. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Halo, the video game.
Oh, Halo!
Lord of the Rings. I think that was most of the big ones we did.
Well, I didn't know there was a Halo set. Who did Halo?
It was Tops.
Can you remember? Was it Tops?
Yeah, it was. I think it was the second project I did with them right after the first Star Wars one.
I bet that was a fun one to do.
Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with the video game. I mean, I knew of it, but I hadn't played it or anything. So.
I think I'd struggle with painting on that. There's a lot of neon in
Halo. I don't use a lot of green, so it was there's green and blue, and I think the deadline was pretty short on that, so it was a little tough. But
yeah, back in the day when you had a week to do 5,000 cards or something.
Yeah, I know. I always try to use sketch cards as an opportunity to practice drawing or practice painting, and keep that goal for myself while I was trying to get all the work done. So it kept me motivated to get everything done. And
it's great for your practice, your talents and your speed, hitting deadlines, all that.
Yeah. It's a challenge.
Anybody starting out, it's a really good thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
What materials do you use to paint?
I think when I was doing cards, I was mostly doing pen and ink drawings, and I think acrylic or watercolor, painting mediums that would dry pretty quick. And some of my sets were, I think, fully painted small pieces, and some were just fully drawn, depending on what I felt like doing at the time.
Yeah.
You do work with watercolors on occasion?
Occasionally. I used to do a lot of watercolor. I started as a watercolorist,
oh, really?
On that when I was younger, and I did it for a while, but kind of felt like I wanted to grow into some other qualities that oil paint had. So these are all oil paintings. So I switched to maybe about 10 years ago. And that's
what kind of oils do you use?
Just Winsor & Newton ones, just the traditional, with a solvent. I don't really try to complicate it. Painting a picture is hard enough as it is. It's I don't try to introduce any, difficult materials or anything. So
I'm so fascinated by oils, though. I mean, the amount of time it takes to build them up, and obviously waiting for it to dry.
Yeah.
So you can work on it. Do you have a few pieces running at the same time, just for when you're in the mood, but this one's not dry? And
I try to do if I'm working on a big piece, sometimes I'll space it out with a smaller piece in the middle just to get an image done while I'm trying to work on some of the larger digestible parts of a painting, because that can sometimes you can lose your eye for if you're staring at it for a week or 2 weeks or something, however long it takes. So but I like oil because I can sketch in it, or I can do more finished work, and I can work small or large, and that's what I like about that. It kind of satisfies all the needs or wants you'd have with painting. You can do something loose or tight. So
you're quite neat then. Do you not put your hand in it? I'd be putting my hand in it.
I think when I first started, it was a real mess, But like anything, you just got to practice and maintain.
Ingrid, with you being a painter as well, I mean, I'm sure we've all done this when we've been painting, washed your brush in your drink instead of.
I definitely keep that stuff to the left in the palette. Right. I know so many people that have had a cup, on the palette, and they just stuck the brush in it, and it's.
Yep, I have done that.
The joys of painting. Oh dear. So did it take you long to get a handle of oils then, or did you take to it pretty quickly?
I think every piece you do can, it can really help you grow. So it's like I think you can make rapid jumps. And if you can't be stressed about making mistakes or doing bad work, because that's just part of it. You kind of have to be ready to accept that you're going to do some pieces you don't like or that you don't feel are good or didn't come out the way you wanted. And that's just something I think after you do a little bit, you kind of become comfortable with. And I used to like wipe down like all these whole portraits or backgrounds and restart them. And I was doing that too much. And I felt like now it's like I'll just leave it, because I'd say, like a week later, I'd say, why did I do that? Because that was not bad,
Yeah.
I think, just I was doing pieces on my own. And then I think one of the first times I really tried it on a deadline was for a Star Wars Celebration piece. I did a bigger Darth Maul portrait, and it became a print for one of the celebrations. I think it was one of the Orlando ones. And
Awesome.
that piece came out all right, or I felt like at the time. And there's still things I really like about it. So it's like from there, I was like, okay, I can do this for projects and things now. And now
You seem to be very comfortable with your, how would you say that? You seem to be very comfortable with your abilities, and you're chill about it. You don't stress too much. That's something that how do you manage to keep that? There are a lot of artists that we've met who do get a little stressed, including us. And what words of advice would you have to kind of just, chill out?
Calm down.
I think, if you have to remember that you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy doing this, and always keep that at the forefront, and there's always going to be anxiety starting a piece or when you're in the middle of it. And I think, that's normal. You have to kind of accept, like I said, that you're going to do work you don't like or aren't happy with. But, I think if you just maintain doing it and accept those things, you can kind of get past the difficult parts and kind of be a little more confident about what you want to do and how you do it, and not be, not get really on yourself about something being too judgmental about it. So,
well, you see, that's the thing with oils, isn't it? Like, I've never gotten past the ugly stage.
Yeah.
Like, I go, oh, that's awful, and then that's it.
I think there's always stuff like that. Like I keep a sketchbook, and it's like, I'll draw in the morning, and like some mornings I'll be like, wow, that really came out, pretty good, and I'm ready to get started in painting something. And other days it's like, what, why did this look this bad?
I know what you mean. Some days you just cannot draw, can you? Everything you draw just looks like garbage. You're like, oh.
Yeah. So you got to keep
having one of those days. It's hard to explain to your customers that you are having one of those days, though. You're like, well, I'm not going to do it today because I'm not going to get the best result.
I worked 6 hours on this, and I have nothing that I could really show. I think you just kind of have to keep the long view, that like, there's going to be pieces you like, pieces you don't like. And persistence is really, such an important part of it. Persistence persistence will be talent, 9 out of 10 times. So I think you guys got to stay at it.
Do you have any particular goals that you're going for at the moment? Is there anything you're working towards, or?
I just was in a gallery show for landscapes and stuff, and I did a large piece a large landscape, and I hadn't done a lot of large pieces lately. I think one of my best pieces was a large Star Wars painting of a speeder bike. This is the study for it, the smaller version. I did a big 48-inch wide version of it. And I always, I liked working big, but there wasn't always the possibility of, working big on some projects. I did a Star Wars Galaxy card for Topps for the last set, one of the base cards, and that was a big portrait. It was like Boba Fett in the Cloud City hallway. It's kind of blue and white. I think it was in the 2018 set. I'm not sure, but I wanted to work large again, so I've been kind of doing some pieces like that and experimenting a little bigger. So I'd like to, keep going a little bigger and see.
So do you think you're going to keep sketch cards in your repertoire, or are you going to just keep going bigger and stay bigger?
I mean, I like I'm always sketching and painting, and I did some card commissions, I think about a year ago, for some Lord of the Rings pieces, and it was nice. It was nice to kind of just jump back into a smaller piece and work those things out again. I thought they came out pretty nice, so it's I don't find it difficult to jump back to a small piece.
Do you find that you can get so much more detail in your bigger pieces after doing sketch cards and concentrating on a tiny little area?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, like you kind of fit more detail into a bigger piece. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah, with a small piece and like cards, you're kind of forced to get an image, the whole image very quickly. And I think, working like that, it really tests and puts your practice of, composing a picture, getting a whole image down quickly. I do think that really helps. If you can work small like that, you can work bigger too. It's just a different scale.
So is landscapes like your favorite thing to do, would you say?
I don't know if it's my favorite. I like it because I kind of have an autonomy over it. I can do the subjects I want and kind of be free of any, restrictions. I was doing always on my own, just as kind of a practice thing, and I liked painting, and it's kind of, keeps you, I would say, like in touch with, being an artist and doing your own work. And I think at the time I had been doing a lot of Star Wars pieces for various projects and things. And I wanted to do some work that was kind of, free of those types of subjects. So I just started doing them a little more, I guess, more complete and advanced, less sketchy. And I think during like the pandemic years, there wasn't a lot of like projects going on because everyone was working at home and stuff. So I was just focusing on those and trying to do a bunch of them. And I think, after like a little while, I had so many, it was like, I should really start selling these or showing them somewhere, because they're all just, sitting in the studio doing nothing. So, and it's not good for me to just have them all the time. So.
Oh no, they're absolutely gorgeous as well. I know what you mean, because it's like if something's man-made, you are restricted, aren't you?
Yeah.
With a nature scene and scenery, you can kind of, I'll put an extra branch there, or I can,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have control of, and do something that was, is maybe more connected to, that was, part of my life, or part, an experience I had, that wasn't like an illustration or a job. Not that I approached those that way, but, I still approach like my Star Wars pieces the same as I would those. So it was just a little different.
Did you enjoy the gallery experience? You said you just.
Yeah, it's very similar. I had done like some conventions. I had done San Diego Comic-Con for a few years, Star Wars Celebration, and it's I think those conventions really helped me prepare for those types of it. They're very similar. It's just the different type of work and maybe a different audience. But I found that most people were kind of interested in both, so it wasn't that different. I didn't find it to be a difficult jump that much.
Do you ever do plein air work?
Yeah, I think that's a really important part of painting, because it kind of forces you to confront maybe the weakest aspects of your ability as a painter, and it kind of forces you to do the things maybe you're put off doing if you're doing instead of doing a studio painting. So I do it reasonably regularly. Some pieces come out really good, some don't come out great, but it's like, I think it's all about the experience of doing it, the practice of being a better painter.
Do you do that with oils or watercolors, or?
Yeah, mostly it's like a small, I think the last one I did was about 8x8, so it was a small painting. But I'll draw from life outside pretty regularly. But not everything, like I said, not everything about that is getting like a finished piece, or something you want to show or sell. I think, if you get one that's nice, and you might want to keep it or sell it or whatever, but I think it's more about just staying in that line of thinking of, getting, how you want to make the picture, and staying.
So you actually approach each painting you do, even if it's just a sketch in your sketchbook, as an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah, I think you always have to be kind of, for me, I know that like I always have to be kind of looking at other artists, other painters, drawers, illustrators, whatever. And I think that kind of keeps you going, it helps to excite you about your own pictures or their work or seeing what other people did and learning like that. I think that's when my like enthusiasm for doing this is probably at its best, and that kind of motivates me to want to start a new picture or try something on a, even an illustration job. Or so always trying to look at stuff or read about stuff or see different artists.
How many studies would you say you do before you go into a finished piece? Is like a roundabout amount, or is it just when you feel like I'm there and I'm ready to?
I think like this speeder bike piece is a good example because I did like a drawing. I did like a bunch of little drawings and like a sketchbook, and from there the idea kind of took shape. And then I did like a watercolor piece just to kind of see like if what color I might want to use. So then I did this study and I submitted that to like the art director and they liked that, and then I just did a big version, kind of just knowing what I learned in this piece, and then just so I think some stuff you just know from the get-go. Like I didn't really need to do any sketches for that one, but some stuff you really want to plan out. So it kind of depends on whatever image you're doing or how you feel about it. Some stuff you're very confident with, other stuff that's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's due in a week. So it's like, we'll figure it out.
You do get a little bit of anxiety, pressure things with projects on occasion?
I think so. I think everybody does.
We're normal, Lindsey. We're normal.
Yeah. I think the more experience you get, the less it maybe affects you. So.
Yeah. Do you collect it all? Because Lindsey collects everything. So
I have a lot of, I have a lot of art books, and I have a lot of like prints from some other artists that I've met, and other artists that I like. So I do have a bunch of stuff.
That's cool. Do you collect video games, or do you play video games?
I mean, I did in the past from time to time, not as much now. I always feel like I should be working on something, and you don't want to get like sucked into anything too much, because then you can really like.
They can take up a lot of time, games.
Yeah,
can't
you can really lose.
I remember back in the day when I used to play World of Warcraft, but I was disciplined. It was Friday night only, party time, just Friday nights, and that was it.
Yeah, I know of it. I know just from people saying that could be a real, become a real
addictive.
I'm afraid to try because I've seen my kids play, and they can play for like, oh my God, so long. So I figure if I get sucked into it,
yeah,
I'm not going to work anymore. Not going to do
I know. That's like the fear in the back of your head anytime you're doing something like that.
And then there's all those binge-worthy TV series as on Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh my word!
Do you have any favorite like genre that you watch, or TV or something?
No, I mean I'll watch shows, like in the evening or something, and kind of go from one series to the next.
So you don't have like you must watch
a particular fandom that you.
Oh no, I mean like if something's interesting me, I'll like find a show on it. But I mean like I have like the HBO and PBS and all those. So it's like it'll just pick a series and feel like where it's going, stay at it. If you don't, just switch to something else. But
yeah. I'm so glad I dropped Lost. Like I could not be. I watched one series, it gave me no answers, and I took my ball home. I'd had enough. I was like, I'm not watching this anymore because I've had no answers at all. And then I heard how it ended, and I was like, I'm so glad I jumped ship after one season.
Yeah.
Oh, that really ruined my life, that series. I watched it, and it was like sometimes you hate it, sometimes you love it, and all that.
Did you do all of it?
And I was like, no, you didn't do that.
Now I need some answers. I can't stand like films that end without a proper ending, and they leave it open, and it's not, it's not that much of a thinker that there's anything to think about. They're just like they're just being lazy and they can't be bothered to do an ending.
Yeah. If there's too many vagaries or something, that's like, it can be irritating. So it feels like the story wasn't like paramount to what they were doing, and it's like, what is this?
Well, that's it. You can be watching the film. Oh, interesting premise. I'd like to see what happens, and then nothing happens, and they just end it, and you go, right, I'm annoyed now.
I know. And then I remember someone saying that like those kind of unresolved stories or films or movies or shows or whatever, then it goes back to like like a primal feeling of like completing, like a task or a hunt that people have, and when it when it doesn't complete, it just you're left with this unresolved.
It's an itch you can't scratch.
The truth of that.
Oh dear.
So do you see yourself continuing along this line of illustration, for instance, for the rest of your life, or do you see a career change coming? There are people who kind of like to, you feel like a real solid person. I have a feeling.
I feel like if I wasn't, an artist or a painter, something would probably always just feel off, and I probably couldn't ever quit, and I'd say like if I wasn't doing it professionally, I'd probably be doing it amateurly. So it's
this is your day job. Yeah, I totally understand.
I like doing it every day. It's it's very difficult. That's not not untrue. So it's going to be times, and I think, where things are up and things are down, and you kind of have to
May I ask which pools you play in? Like you do some sketch cards, but you obviously do also fine art. You mentioned a gallery. So you have like several different places that you put your art?
I think I always liked the artists that kind of did a little of both, like some of the illustrators that would, kind of go between the two. So that's always something I liked, both aspects of their work. So it's, there'll be times where I think, one may have to become more dominant over the other. That might just be the realities of, being a working artist, and that's fine, But like from time to time, you still like to do, if you're focusing on illustration, you'll be painting on your own, whether that's just for yourself or just for practice, or if you're, doing a lot of that, and somebody approaches you with like a project or something, a job or an illustration that's, exciting to do, or something that you connect with, it's like, of course I'd like to do that.
Has there been a favorite piece you've done that you were super excited to do?
That's hard, because I'm not sure anything ever really comes out the way you want, and it's like, I think you're always like, well, next time I know what I'm doing, so then I'll get it right that time. So it's difficult. There's some that you have like a greater connection to, like that piece Outpost, the one I did for Celebration, the speeder bike painting. That was one that was like an idea that was just in my head for a while. And I felt like at the time it kind of like melded all the interests I had. I've been looking at like some of the like Western painters, like Frank Tenney Johnson and Frederick Remington. And I had wanted to kind of corral all that into like a Star Wars piece that had, a mood and, a landscape with the subject of the stormtrooper on the speeder bike. And so that piece, I think, it really felt like a kind of a unique one I did that felt very unique to me, and that one probably for my Star Wars stuff, I think has one of the greater connections. But I liked some of the Boba Fett pieces I did. I did a portrait a while back that was very popular, and that was just a fun study on the character. You're painting the portrait, you can hear character's voice, and kind of get into all the details of the helmet and stuff, and some of those like this, where you get to kind of explore your own idea that maybe hasn't been seen before. Those pieces, I think, have a greater.
I love the mood of that Boba Fett. All on your website, all your Boba Fett's, they're all fantastic. But I just the style, I love it.
Despite the fact that you really are a traditional painter, when it comes right down to it, you're a traditional painter, but you're still a fanboy at heart, because you're playing in the universe, the Star Wars universe, occasionally other universe. You still like it all. You can't get away from it.
Yeah, I think, if you're gonna be an artist, you really have to like enjoy, even the smallest detail. Because if you're gonna be doing this like every day, like with like painting, I like, just the smallest detail, like putting the brush across, like the surface, and then like even the biggest thing of building like a collection of work of your own work that you've done. So I think I kind of felt like with that, you had to be able to, like I said, be connected to even the smallest detail and the biggest details if you're going to keep doing it. And that's what worked for me. I mean, just.
Do you even enjoy mixing the paint? Oh, it winds me up.
I'd say that's probably that can take a little while. So it's like that probably takes longer always than you'd hope it would. And then
if you've stopped off and you need to go back to it the next day and you can't mix the same color. Oh my God.
You mix a color, you go to put it on, and it's like it's totally not right at all. It looked right on the palette. So then you gotta, add that in. So
yeah.
that part is probably, I would say, the most difficult part, because that's something you typically do in the morning. And it's like if you have paint that's like left over from like the day before or something too, and it's like, oh, I can just take the top off this and work from that, but it never works because there's always like a film or something, and then it's like you got to restart, clean the whole thing. But it's just a task you got to do.
Oh dear.
You actually work with acrylics too on occasion?
If like something's due right away, I might try it. It's been a long time. Some of my sketch cards were painted in acrylic. Like I probably have some here. Some of my Star Wars ones were.
So that's about the only thing I can use with me putting my hand in everything. So messy.
Clock one with acrylic.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Pretty.
oh,
Galaxy cards.
mm.
So like for those, I would, just because you wanted to like be assured that the card would be dry. I think this is probably like your color, just sketch card.
I did try oils for.
Oh, I can see it now. I couldn't. You were too close before, and then all these little Jawas popped out.
Yeah, that was one of the. I think it was a promo for the Star Wars 30th set. So when I was doing like cards like that, I was like using like watercolor mostly. Occasionally acrylic if you wanted to do anything opaque.
How do you manage to do watercolor on those cards? I just can't do it.
Yeah.
They all go.
Some of them, the later ones had a different texture, but I think some of those early cards, they were just like paper, so it was easy to just put it on there. And I mean, I'm sure some of them, probably bled and blotted, but I think most of them, I think, came out all right.
Yeah, wait, stylistic choice,
Back then, like with those cards, I was like doing a lot of experimentation. Like I said, I was like practicing painting on them, so it was kind of trying to be free of worrying what would or wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Do you have any words of advice for people who are watching who might want to try some of the media that you use?
I think practicing is the most important. Like I said, you gotta not be afraid of like doing bad work or doing a piece that you feel fails or so. So I think it's just keeping at it, being persistent, not getting too down about pieces you don't like, or if things are coming out not the way you want them to. And like I said, for me, I try to read about other artists or learn about them. You can contact other artists. I always like the times I've written letters to other artists. They've almost always been really outgoing, and I've had great experiences that I think back on meeting a bunch of them. So I'd say looking at work, reading about it, and just trying to stay excited about it and hang on to those things that make you want to do work in the first place, and what connected you to it.
It's surprising how often actually other artists will actually reply when you ask them, hey,
Yeah,
artists are so desperate to talk to other people because you're forever in your studio all the time. You want to get
I was like really into a lot of like the illustrators, like the post Norman Rockwell era for a while. And I had written a letter to Bernie Fuchs. He was probably one of the biggest illustrators after like a lot of the golden age guys. And like I wrote him a letter, just sent it out, and got like a phone call one day, and like ended up to like his studio in Connecticut and meeting him, hanging out all day. It was like amazing. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend anybody to do that. I mean, there's still ones that I want to reach out to. I don't think it's something that you should not do, because like I said, you're in there doing work all by yourself all day. So it's like I'm sure people would enjoy talking to somebody else about their work and helping. So.
It is amazing that you can actually get in touch with people, though, isn't it? I remember my dissertation for college. I contacted somebody who wrote a book called The Book of Bunny Suicides, and it's just these little cartoon bunnies that commit suicide in fun ways. Like one's got his head under the leg of a chair, and there's a big fat guy about to sit down, and things like that. But I wasn't expecting a reply, but he replied and answered all my questions, bless him. And you're like, oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People can be quite responsive to you,
Yeah, especially now with like the COVID years. People are probably looking to get out more, or get back in touch with people.
Okay, that's enough now. I don't want to be home anymore.
Yeah.
Well, my life didn't change a great deal, so that were a big eye opener.
I know, right?
Home too much.
So speaking of which, you said before we started recording that you'd be happy to come on our Sketchbook 2 episode.
Of course, yeah.
I've got a lot of sketchbooks, so I think people are going to be very, very interested in seeing your sketches.
Yeah, can I see a quick sketch now? Shall we?
Yeah,
I love sketch work.
This is like one that I just practice in, like day to day. It's not something I really show or anything, but just to make it.
This time you're showing us
Most of these I'm just doing pen drawings, because at the time I had been painting so much that I felt kind of like a disconnect from drawing. So I was looking at like Charles Dana Gibson and some of the like etchings from like Anders Zorn. I really wanted to kind of get back into like that fluid line drawing. So that's what I was doing with this sketchbook, and I was copying some other artists' things.
I bet all your sketchbooks are beautiful. I bet they're all like lovely, beautiful, laid out drawings. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was trying to like draw the lights, the darks, trying to draw in the way that a lot of those painters do. Like this was like a Luke study I did, just kind of focusing on the light parts and the dark parts, and kind of getting the overall image without getting too stuck on the particulars.
So with those sketches, are you making your shadows and with lines? Are you hatching it?
Yeah, like this is just like a still life of like I don't know if there's like a coffee cup there or radio, just anything.
There's a Dutch artist that did a whole book. I can't remember the name at all. I haven't looked at that book for a number of years now. I want to take it out. He did a whole book of landscapes just in ink and pencil, and it's a whole master class in using pencil. Just similar to that.
Yeah.
And doing all these buildings and just using line work, no smudging or shading, just using line work. Your work is reminding me of that.
Yeah, I was trying to get back focused on drawing, and it was like, I was trying to think of like how can I like get all those qualities of like lights, darks, halftones, and so I was looking at like painters that had drawings, like some of their etchings and things really appealed to me, and I liked that drawing where you could kind of get the full feel of the thing without being too flat or too dimensional. So I was, just practicing in this book with that.
Where can people find you online? You mentioned that you're not online a whole lot, but you do have a website. Where else can they find you?
Yeah, I think I'd like to use social media more. I think it just maybe doesn't come so naturally to me, but I'm trying to, everybody's like, you gotta get on there and post stuff, and so I'm trying to use it a little more. I think Instagram's probably the best. That's the most direct. It's Doug Cowan Art, I think, is DougCowanArt. I think that's my name on there. I post from time to time. I'd like to post more. So,
And what's your website?
DougCowan.net, DougCowan.net.
I highly recommend people going and visiting your website. I mean, there's just so much beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful.
Right now, it's mostly just my own paintings, and then some of my Star Wars illustrations. I don't have a lot of my cards or anything on there right now, but I mean, if anybody wants to see any of that stuff, just get in touch with me, and I'll send it out.
Hey, wow! Thank you so much, Lindsey. Do you have any other questions to ask?
I think that's everything. I think I've asked everything. Oh, it's been such a lovely chat today, Doug. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Pulling all over your paintings.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having come to join us. And I'm looking forward to having you back on for the sketchbook episode. That'll probably be in July
Okay.
or August or something.
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Okay, well, thank you again, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you.